Namaste and greetings once again. Welcome back to the Foundation Green series of modules. This time, we want to discuss with you something really interesting and something that you read, well, at least once a week in your newspapers. And if you're a magazine reader, in the last maybe 4 weeks now, at least two national dailies have carried, national magazines have carried stories on carbon and India. So what is this about crafting your carbon footprint? Quite often in the last, say, 3 years or so, I have been meeting youngsters who have done their masters in sustainability, who have done their environment planning, who are people, sometimes they are working professionals who spent 8 years, 10 years doing architecture or working on research in areas of sustainability. And I stopped these youngsters and I asked them, hey, tell me how much is the carbon that your apartment uses? I draw a blank. I asked them a very simple question, another alternate question. I say, well, you're living in an apartment of say 480 flats. What do you think is the peak water demand for your apartment? This seemed to be reasonably sensible and very utterly simple questions to ask. But most often, while we debate and discuss all these large complex issues of sustainability and of the Glasgow and Tokyo protocols and carbon protocols signed by India in Paris and so on, we do not understand what it means to map our own carbon footprint. Let me take you through a short ride of what these things mean to you and me. India is targeting a total reduction in greenhouse gas emissions of about 2.5 billion tons. Some reports say 3 billion tons. For our discussion, we'll keep that at 2.5 by 2030. And before COP26 in Glasgow, well, the government of India had announced this, that we are aiming to look at about 2.5 billion tons. In one of the earlier modules, we have discussed how this connects with 2.5 billion tons as a target for India and what the cities can achieve simply in terms of saving of water from decisions that both the Water Supply Board and the water consumer makes was part of the story we told you, right? Now here, the larger scene is that we have 50 billion tons as a target for 2050. And let me remind you folks that if the world does not reverse these processes in the next 20, 30 years, God help your children and your grandchildren. There is no way the planet can survive if you let the carbon levels continue to go at the levels at which they're going. You're seeing all the bad news around you, whether in terms of unexpected heat waves. In Paris this year, in April, there was snow in April, which is summer in France. So this whole complex story of climate change is beyond our understanding as of now. And all we know is that if we reduce our carbon emissions and bring it back to these levels in the next, say, 20, 30, 40 years, we will be back to at least having our future generations survive better on this planet. So what's the story that you can add to? Forget what the government can do. What is it that you can do? Look at this, these 4 numbers that I present to you. The one on the bottom left is 25 tons per annum, and that is to do with the power or the electrical energy that you use in your house. Take your last month's electricity bill. Typically, you will find that depending upon the state to which you belong, you will be paying anywhere from about 500-600 rupees to about 1,500 rupees per month. But don't look at the rupees. Look carefully in the electricity bill for the number of units that you have consumed for the month. It typically will show the previous month's consumption, and it will show you the present. Now, at 500 units, which is the average for a home, if it's a middle-class home with say 4 people staying there, living there, you will find that it's about 6,000 units, and 6,000, that is for a year, 500 units into 12. And that 6,000 units is about 24,000 units as source energy. And we have explained what source energy is in another module. And that 24,000 units is 24 into about 1.1 or about 26.4 tons of carbon. Well, for this slide, we put that at 25 tons, but it's about 25 to 26 tons of carbon that you use in your family, if you're a family of 4, in a regular middle class home. I'm not even talking of somebody who is living a rich lifestyle, right? The second one is that blessed gas cylinder that you buy approximately every 2 months. Now, you may be a home which consumes it in every 45 days, but here, for purposes of our computation, I've taken this to be 2 months. And therefore, per month, per cylinder, we are using something like 1.5 tons divided by 12, or look at it another way, 10 kgs. Let's say it's an 18 kg system, the cylinder, divided by 2 for 1 month. So you've got about 9 kgs. 9 kgs of natural gas. Go check on your websites how natural gas or combustible gas of this kind, butane or propane, converts into carbon. You'll get that value. Multiply that value and you'll get to this figure of about 1.5 tons. Basic homework, you can do that. There's no nuclear science here. Now, the other consumption beyond electricity and beyond water is in your home or mine, we all use a scooter, a car, or petrol, sometimes it's diesel driven, right? Now, there is a larger computation for this, which I shall show you at the end of this module. But for purposes of this slide, I must tell you that if I were to take a car which consumes about 15 kilometers to a liter, this will come to approximately 0.2 tons per annum. That's it. It's very small, actually. You could say, well, it's so small, maybe I should use the car more often. But another flip side of it is, you can say, if it is consuming as little, maybe I want to keep it that way, right? Now, water. Typically, for a middle class home, if let's say you're using a bit of water for landscape and for your car wash and such things, you would be using about 1,000 liters a month, and that's 30,000 liters a month, 1,000 liters a day. 12 months is 360,000 liters, and that's about 8 tons. This 8 tons, I don't need to explain to you. You have already understood that from some of the modules that we have, and you and I have discussed, and you have absorbed and understood over the last few sessions that we have had so far. The points scored. So for water, it's about 23%. For petrol, it's 0.6%. Gas is 4.3%. And look at it on the right side. House. The house is at 72%, right? That's for electrical energy. So I take a math, therefore, I find that electrical energy consumes the most in my house, in your house. Keep that in mind. And so your house, if it's at a total of 25 plus 1.5 plus 0.2 plus 8, about 35 tons. What is 35 tons of carbon? What does it look like? How much space that it takes? And therefore, we put this little image here of how 1 ton of carbon dioxide looks like this. A 500 meter cube hot air balloon is what 1 ton of CO2 is. And your house consumes the equivalent of 35 such balloons every year, even if you are a middle class home. Am I driving home the message in your mind? Can you see what this means to your home and to your family at 35 tons of carbon every year? Do you believe that you are making an impact on climate change, or you don't? Think about it. And here are some, well, look at this. What you can do to meet India's carbon target. What you can do. That's the critical part. You could read a newspaper tomorrow morning over a cup of tea, read something about carbon and the protocol and say, well, it's not my job. It's up to the government to do what they want to do. Is that the position you want to take? Or do you want to actually understand what and how you are a culprit in the process? You are contributing to it all. Well, look at these 1, 2, 3, 6 bullets here that we explained them to you. Help water users with water treatment and reuse. Now, if you are a water professional, a certified professional, at the end of doing a program like this one at Foundation Green, you will be capable of reducing water in my house, if I was an inefficient home of the regular kind, by 50% at the minimum. You could take this to about 70 or 80%, as you will understand when you do this entire program. Guide water users with simple devices like aerators. These are simple solutions. The third bullet is talking about rainwater harvest systems, and we discussed it in one of the modules that we did earlier. And then we have how you can help them compute, produce, generate power with just 1 kilowatt peak, as it's called in solar. On your rooftop of the house that you live in, if you're living in an independent home, all you need to do is probably spend 50 or 60,000 rupees and get 1 kilowatt of power generated, which will mean, well, about 1,500 units in a year for 1 kilowatt peak. Another way of saying it is about 4 units of power that you can generate with your own solar system. Your home, as I said, approximately consumes about 500 units divided by 30. You got about 16 units to a day, right? If I've got 500 units in a month. And that means that with this 1 kilowatt peak, 4 units, well, about 25% of your power can be generated and consumed, produced and consumed by you. And that, like Alvin Toffler wrote in 1970, check out that book of Alvin Toffler, Toffler. Read that book. We'll put that as a reference somewhere, on the screen here soon. What it means is that you could do, say, 2 kilowatts with 200 square feet of your rooftop. 2 kilowatts is 50% of your power. If 50% of your power is generated right there in your house, that 4x syndrome, remember that 4x syndrome, does not apply for this power, because you are producing it and consuming it right here. There's no loss in transmission. There's no loss in distribution. This is actually DC power because it is solar power. In fact, the cable that comes off the solar panel system, the electricity line that comes off it, you can touch that line. You won't get a shock because it's a 12-volt line. And you can take that 12-volt line back, fit it back into your home system, and get an expert to do the rest of it for your house. And what does that mean to you? With just 2 kilowatts, 50% of your power can be produced responsibly here, and the saving for the country is on the other half, which is 6,000 divided by 2, 3,000 into 4x, 12,000 units of power that you save for the country. And 12,000 is about 13,000 kgs of coal that some young boy is, sort of excavating and mining from out of those coal pits in Bihar or in Chhattisgarh or in Odisha. Do you want that to be happening in those coal mines? Do you want to get a little more conscionable and set up a system at barely 50, 60,000 rupees, which money you will get back in less than a month, year and a half or so, or 2 years, depending upon the tariff in your state? What does that mean? You can be a water professional connected back to energy in a certain way. I put this here, though we are talking of a water management development program. I put this solar here because it's tantalizingly attractive. It is so simple for you to do in your home. And this module today and this discussion is about carbon and reduction. And therefore, this bullet, the fourth bullet, found place and home in this slide. Market energy savers. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if you're using an air conditioner, buy one of these energy savers. They cost you about 10,000 rupees, could be less. And it can save you, if it's an old air conditioner that you're using over 7, 8 years old, you can save up to 40%. If it's a new air conditioner bought, say, a year ago, which is more efficient, relatively speaking, you can save up to 20%. But you will save either way. If it's a new AC or an old AC, if it is one of those regular ACs from Samsung and other companies like that, you will easily save 20 to 40%. If it's an inverter AC, then you will not save. But an inverter AC costs you 70,000, maybe 60,000 rupees today on the market. So why would you want to buy something like that? You can buy your regular 24,000, 26,000 split AC, and then have one of these energy savers put there at about 9 or 10,000, and you managed to save 40% or 20%, depending upon the efficiency levels of that air conditioner. Well, the last one is about waste to energy and waste to compost. Carbon is about all of these things. What I didn't discuss in that first slide when I took you through the home process is that the waste that your home puts out is about half kg to one person. That's about 2 kgs of wet waste every day. 2 kgs is too small, you can only make compost out of it. But if you're living in a 1,000 flats apartment, that's 2 tons, 2,000 kgs. Now, if you have 2 tons, you can produce approximately 5% of 2 tons. That's 100 kgs of combustible gas, like that comes off your cylinder. If your cylinder is an 18 kg cylinder, it means I can produce 5 cylinders of gas out of 2 tons of wet waste. Wow, isn't that a wow? And that is how you, I, and as a community, your apartment, for instance, can actually reduce carbon emission. Well, I think we come to the end of another session, but before we do that, look at this one. You know, I found this interesting enough and I thought I'd share it with you. 1 email costs 1 gram of CO2. Somebody has done the research on that. Interesting. And look at the math here. Look at the math. If we stopped sending a mail, sometimes just saying thank you, you are the guy who, well, got that mail, is not going to be offended. Try and reduce the number of emails you send out, therefore, right? The numbers, of course, build up. If the same thing were to be done as an exercise in India, with, I would reckon, about 150 million people who use this, Britain in all has only about 60 million people, and only about 25 million people use it in Britain or in the UK. Here in India, we are about 150 million people who use emails, right? Right? Now look at that, think about it, and see what you can do about that. How much CO2 is produced by your car? If you had one of these elegant, beautiful machines called the Maruti 800, how much does it weigh? Is the first question I will ask. In this case, it's about 650. If it's a Baleno, it would have been about 850 kgs. If it's a Polo, a Volkswagen, it weighs about 1.5 tons, 1,500 kgs. If it's a Benz, it weighs as much, about 1,550 kgs or so. Well, in a Maruti, if it's 650 kgs, and if it's taking, let us say, 15 kilometers, these are old vehicles, you don't expect them to offer you more than 15 kilometers, though they are small and compact. That's 12,000 kilometers. If I'm driving 30 kilometers a day, 1,000 kilometers a month, that would use approximately 800 liters. Every liter of petrol, look at this, weighs about 0.7 kgs. That makes it 800 into 0.7, about 560 kgs. That much fuel, that is 800 liters, will produce 3 times that in terms of weight of CO2. That is, this 560 kgs into 3 is 1.68 tons of carbon that your car produces. You got that? If you're using it for only about 30 kilometers a day. And that is something that you might want to think about and do something about. Every time, if you're an architect, I keep telling them, every time you draw for a client, every time you build a house as a contractor, you're destroying. Every act of creation is about destruction. And although this is a module on water, but this is a series on water, I'm bringing this up because in this module, we are also trying to impact you, to help you understand the impact that carbon makes from different sources. In this case, if I were to take an apartment of about 100,000 square feet, 4,300 cubic meters of concrete is used, and about 2,000 cubic meters of sand is used. Look at that picture on the right. That's a blend of aggregate or stone, cement, and of course, sand. Now, every cubic meter of M25, which is the highest structural strength offering concrete, is about 2.4 tons of carbon emission. 85% of the weight of a bottle. Do you understand that glass is 80%, 85% sand? So 85% of the weight of a bottle is from sand. And where does the sand come? I will tell you that in a minute. To find out the amount of sand used in a half-liter bottle, you will have to weigh the bottle, empty of course, and then multiply that weight by 0.85, right? Very simple, right? The math is, and that will give you the carbon emission, whatever, of a bottle. Look at that. It's happening in your city, in my city, in every city in the country and in the world. Riverbed mining today is one of the most major activities occurring all over the world for constructing a building, bridges, roads, industry, every single thing, including glass, right? So what can you do about that? What can the world do about it? Every megawatt hour of power, or 1,000 units, costs about 30,000 liters of water in a coal-fired plant. We brought this up in another discussion the last time, and we had asked you to see if you could answer those questions. And here we are answering that question for you. You could find the answer yourself, actually, on our website. Every single chip that goes into your laptop or your smartphone uses about 30 liters of water. And millions of chips are being made every day. Even your car uses a chip these days for the smart things that it does. A cell phone takes about 1,000 water liters to manufacture. So the next time you want to change your smartphone, think about it. Do you want to change it and lose another 1 ton or 1,000 liters of water? A t-shirt, a simple thing like the one I'm wearing in cotton, costs about 3,000 liters of water because of the process of colors and dyes and the treating and the use of various things that make for a fabric. Do I stop wearing clothes, therefore? No, but we try and see if we can bring efficiency in these processes. Every 5 liters of petrol takes 12 to 20 liters of water to produce. Interesting, because the process of getting petroleum out from under the sea, for instance, in places or wherever, from the land sometimes, from shale, uses water. So every 5 liters means about 2.5 times to 4 times as water that you consume. Everything in the world is about water. Here I leave you with several questions in 2 slides. And these are fundamentally questions about the carbon kg per passenger kilometer. How much does it cost? If I'm taking a flight from, say, Bangalore to Delhi, how much is that as carbon kg? What is the ratio from natural gas, that is from your gas cylinder, to carbon kg? I asked you this question through this discussion today. Where does India get her petrol, diesel, kerosene from? 85% of India's petrol and diesel is imported. Where are we getting it from? After the Ukraine war, prices of petrol have gone up, even before it did go up for other reasons of taxes and so on. But the point is that Ukraine has made it more difficult. So where is it coming from? What is the most expensive of the 3, petrol, diesel, or kerosene? How is octane 8, which is used by aircraft, different from petrol that you and I use for cars, both in money and in carbon terms? What is the carbon kg equivalent of each of these things about? What is the imported natural gas in your country today, in India? How is butane, I mentioned this earlier, butane different from propane? What is the electricity bill of your house the last 6 months? What does it tell you in the light of what you heard today in this discussion? You learn a lot if you simply studied your water bill and asked all the right and smart questions. More of those same questions, all of these will appear in the Google form for you to see that you put in your responses. If you applied your mind, listened to this video carefully, once again, if necessary, paused, made your notes, set down your questions, thought back again about it all, you will see that your understanding of the nature of carbon and the nature of use of water or of energy is profoundly deepened, right? And that is what I think you should do as you go along, not simply for the purpose of certification that this program, of course, offers you, but because it will make you a decent human being and a fantastic professional when it comes to water and carbon. Thank you so much for being with me this edition of Foundation Green. There's a lot more to come, wonderful things for you. Stay with us. Meet us again on the next edition. Thank you.